Hello, everyone. It's Micah and Amir, and on today's music reaction list video, we are looking at the next number one hit of the 1980s. Let me change my position here. Excuse me, guy. You don't have to leave. You can come back. Uh, I like the framing of him over there, and yeah, my cat is cute, right? Okay, so we're going to be talking about Baby Come to Me, the 1983 hit by Patti, Austin, and James Ingram. This continues my series of reacting, or as I've now termed it, reactionless videos of number one hits of the 1980s. We did reaction videos of all of the first 3 years of the 80s, and I'm determined to make it through to the end. And we are now getting into that liminal space where I was actually experiencing these songs as a child as they were being released. This is probably the very last song that I'll react to in this series where I don't have a clear memory of knowing about the song when it was out. So this was more of an adult contemporary hit. It did not have a music video. When I went to go look up a music video on YouTube, the most popular stand-in for this was a TV performance of it that was somewhat awkwardly staged. Probably pretty good production values for the time, and I was surprised. In 1983, music videos were all the rage, but I guess not everyone was doing one, and especially for songs that weren't as youth oriented. Uh, then they didn't do music videos a lot of times, and this is a song which I'm mainly familiar with, not through having listened to it when it was out, but through those record collections that they tried to sell of love songs of 80s pop standards. I don't know whether it just kept appearing on the same commercial over and over, or whether it was featured on multiple collections, but I remember this chorus being on a loop in my head throughout much of my childhood. And it wasn't until I listened to the song all the way through last night that I realized that I probably have never in my life heard the verses to this song. The chorus is iconic, and or at least for me, it feels iconic because I've heard it so many times, mainly in the context of those commercials. But the song itself, the full song, has a much different texture than you get from the chorus. And the main reason for that is someone who's not even credited on the song, and that would be Michael McDonald. The chorus very much reads like a Michael McDonald soft pop jazz slash R&B chorus that would be featured on one of Michael's solo records. And so that's probably my biggest issue with this song. It's a very pleasant and lovely song, but it almost seems like two different songs. Now, when I listened to it again immediately preceding this video, it wasn't as jarring as it seemed to me last night when I was listening to it the first couple of times. But this is kind of a variety of pop song that I call a Franken song. This is where the verses and the chorus don't really seem to match up. They don't seem to be from the same song. The chorus seems to be grafted onto a different musical idea that makes up the verses and the rest of the structure of the song. Another example of a song where I'm clearly in the minority because everyone else loved this song, including the critics, is "Call Me Maybe" by Carly Rae Jepsen. To me, my problem with that song has always been that the chorus doesn't seem to go with the verses. She has these perfectly jumpy little verses that are spry and happy and have a certain energy to them, and then it's almost like, okay, now we're gonna do a chorus, and the chorus has a different texture to it, and there's no narrative I can build around why they decided to just jump over to this other musical idea for the chorus. I can't really connect the two very easily, and that's sort of what's going on here as well. There is a very kind of slow, methodical, soulful quality to the verses, and then the chorus is just kind of Michael McDonald and sing-songy, and it kind of doesn't totally connect in my mind. Now, like I said, up on my third listen today, it definitely started to come together a little better and cohere as a single musical thought better, but I am struggling with that. Uh, Both Patti and James have gorgeous voices and powerful voices, and Patti shows a good deal of restraint. She, from what I understand, is also kind of a jazz style singer, so I expect that from her. James, on the other hand, kind of leaps into the song a little too aggressively for my taste, especially considering that this is kind of a soft, poppier ballad. He's auditioning, it almost seems he's auditioning for a very different kind of a song. Her vocals are very soulful, but a little more subtle. He just leaps in with both feet and like starts really tearing into the lyrical content of the song with gusto. And for me, I think that's sort of James Ingram's MO throughout his career. His biggest hit, and almost all of his hits were with other people, collaborating with other artists. And his biggest hit, if I'm not mistaken, would be his duet with Linda Ronstadt from the movie An American Tail. That song is a classic, somewhere out there, and it is a gorgeous song. And his vocal on the song is great. But it seems like, it feels to me, and this is a narrative I've constructed, that the producers were like holding him back from really letting loose on that song and taking it even further, because his vocal style is very intense. But this is not a referendum on James Ingram's voice. It's simply a reaction to this video, so I'll rein it back in. His vocals are incredible, but I don't know that they're maybe just a little too intense for the lyrical content of this song. And as for the lyrics, I promise all 3-4 times I listened to this song through, I tried to focus on the lyrics, but they're just not very memorable. They're forgettable. They're greeting card lyrics, and they're not. I don't feel any real story behind them. What I feel with this song is a great deal of craftsmanship, a bunch of professional musicians coming together and crafting something that they think is a beautiful object to put up on a shelf somewhere. I don't get the impression that anyone's personal experience really permeated the composition of this record. And so while it's a lovely song, it's not a song I'm eager to revisit. And final note on this is that in looking at the lineup, both the performers that are listed, the ones that are working behind the scenes, the producers, the engineers, and all this, it occurred to me that there was definitely an ecosystem of pop music that was functioning very robustly in 1983. And we tend to think of Thriller, Michael Jackson's album Thriller, which we're going to get to very shortly, but very, very shortly, as a matter of fact, because Billie Jean is just around the corner as a number one record that will just be next in sequence of what I react to or don't react to, as the case may be. We tend to think of Thriller as this monolith, and in reality, it existed inside of a pop music landscape that already existed. I say all that to say that Quincy Jones produced Baby Come to Me. James Ingram and Patti Austin both appeared on Quincy Jones' previous album, which I believe was released in 1980, prior to this. James Ingram co-wrote PYT for Michael Jackson. James Ingram would continue to work with Quincy Jones on his later on his later work, there's all kinds of connections here. Michael McDonald, who sang background vocals, did a duet with James Ingram a year or two after this. There was a lot of interrelated musical. There were lots of musical relationships that were at play here, and that fed into the Thriller album. As much of a monolith as it is in terms of its success, these were people who were having lots of other hits with lots of other people, and Baby Come to Me would have certainly felt out of place on Thriller if Michael Jackson had sung it as a duet, presumably, because that's how it's written. But the instrumentation, you can definitely sort of tell that a lot of the same people are working on these two records. The synths and the overall production vibe are very similar to the more down-tempo tracks on Thriller. And so it's just interesting to see how a song like this, which is not necessarily aged that well. I mean, it is. I don't want to say it hasn't aged well. It's just not necessarily a relevant song in what year is it? It's not 19 something anymore, is it? In 2026, it's still as relevant as it was in 1983, which is what I think I was trying to say. It's definitely not as relevant. Whereas Billie Jean, which is coming up right after this as number one on the charts in 1983, is literally on the Apple Music viral playlist currently, and this is still the after effects of the Michael biopic, and it's just interesting, to see which songs thrive and survive after so many years and which ones do not. Now, we just got through listening to Down Under, which was a number one hit in this exact same period of time, and also Africa by Toto. Down Under has like 500 million views on YouTube. Africa has 1.2 billion views on YouTube. And I'm sure that streaming numbers on other platforms echo that sort of popularity, for the ongoing popularity for those songs. And Billie Jean and Beat It, of course, have lives of their own as classic 1980s records. This one, produced by the same people, not so much. So it's just interesting to see what took off and what didn't from essentially like the same group of people, of the same group of creative minds. Another interesting fact, of course, is that Toto, who had the last number one that Patti Austin replaced in the number one spot in 1983, Toto actually essentially performed the song Human Nature on the Thriller album as well. So they were part of that whole ecosystem, that whole pop ecosystem of the time as well. Human Nature, this is not news for anyone who already knows, which I guess is always the case. But I don't want to present this as something that I just discovered on my own. This is pretty widely known for the people who care to know about it. But Human Nature on the Thriller album is more or less a Toto song with Michael Jackson on lead vocals. That's why it sounds so different to me, anyway, from the other songs on the record. And what really makes it special is because, as I mentioned in the last video, Toto, the Toto team, that band, they were musical geniuses. I think I could get away with using the G word for them. And Human Nature is just this gorgeous, shimmering piece of music, and Michael's crazy ethereal vocals over the top of that. Just, Human Nature is definitely one of my favorite songs off of the Thriller record. But again, there's these interrelated things happening for these people who were number one on the charts at the time, and I think that's worth mentioning for one reason, and this will be my last point before I sign off. And this is central to my whole Make Music Better um, philosophy, and that is that we tend to assign arbitrary characteristics to musical periods based on our like or dislike of them. And stated another way, or more clearly, what I'm trying to say here is that there are people who will denigrate current music or music from a certain period by saying that, oh, it was just all the same people putting out a bunch of music that sounded the same. Uh, and they will point to something like the 1980s as being this time, this golden age, this idyllic time when people didn't all do the same type of thing all the time. And I would argue that there's never not been a time when there's not been a tin pan alley of sorts, sort of a musical holy grail, the in producers and in songwriters that would churn out hits for multiple artists. There's always kind of been that. There's always been that pipeline, and with Tin Pan Alley, with Motown, in certain cases, those musical factories have been celebrated as positive things. But if you choose to look at it as a negative thing, you can definitely couch it in those terms and make villains out of people who are just making a living in the business of making music. So that's a little food for thought there. Well, that wraps up today. I think Billie Jean is going to be my next reaction, but you will find out when I make that video, and so will I. Until next time, please help me to continue to make music better.